true Agile workspace. Please let's just I think there are more people struggling to join in. And we'll kick off in the next 1 minute. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Okay. Welcome once again, everyone. Please, Lalita, let me know if you can see my screen. And if my notes are not showing once I share. How is
Your
it looking?
notes are still showing. I
Really?
can see your screen, but it's still showing. Yeah, it's showing next slide and the notes section. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I think you have to come out of.
If you go to display settings, just drop that down, Deborah, at the top there
Okay.
in the middle.
Okay.
Okay, it went off. I can't see your screen anymore.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me just go to display setting. So I wonder.
Deb, share while you're doing it, and we can maybe talk you through it.
Okay. Let's go. How is it?
So now it's still showing your full slide deck. So go to slideshow. Yep, there we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. And how is it looking now? Perfect, right?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Sorry about that, everyone. Good evening once again, and welcome to another session of Tools and Techniques Thursday. Tonight we have Karabo Schoeman with us, and he's going to be taking us through Agile Workspace. We can't wait for what Karabo has in store for us. Before we get into it, I would like to introduce Karabo. He has a very impressive CV, dynamic experience, is renowned for blending analytical precision with strategic execution, and that shows in the project that is implemented. I think the recent project he implemented was for MTN, where he brought together his skills in strategic execution, product ownership, business analysis, and project management. Karabo started his career as a customer service intern, but he's been shining through, growing in leaps and bounds. He advanced through roles like financial advisor, junior product owner, and business reporting analyst. Each of the position that he experienced or went through deepened his ability to understand user need, to manage data-driven insights, and to deliver data-driven solutions. It comes with hands-on experience in campaign management and reporting, and brings marketing savvy edge to technical leadership. Karabo is passionate about empowering high-performing teams, promoting inclusive collaboration, and shaping digital strategies that matter. Tonight, we have the pleasure and honor of Karabo taking us through what exactly it means to be agile in the real sense. Before we get into the presentation, I would like to take you through um, our rules. Please do not turn on your video. We only want the presenters to turn on their videos to make sure to ensure that we don't have issues with lagging and all of that. The presentation is going to be 45 minutes long. Karabo is going to let us know if You can interrupt, or if we can take the Q&A only after the presentation. The presentation is going to be uploaded on the IIBSA YouTube page. You can find it in the link. We're going to be posting the link in the chat box. Please use the chat box to follow the link while we're having the session. Unfortunately, we do not share our presentation deck. But yeah, if you need information, please stay tuned and follow through the presentation. To become a member of IIBA South Africa, please go to the link. It's going to be posted in the chat box. https www.iiba.org, business analysis membership. Every second week we have our tools and techniques, but on Wednesdays we have our lane coffee. If you want to follow through and know about our event, upcoming event at IIBA South Africa, please visit the link here. The link is also going to be in the chat in the next couple of minutes. Also would like for you to follow us on LinkedIn to see what we are up to. You are going to have the link in the chat box in the next couple of minutes also. If you would like to present any tool or technique, whatever knowledge or capability that you have, if you would like to share with the community, we would be very grateful. Please contact us at professionaldevelopment@southafrica.iiba.org. We're so thankful for you joining us tonight, and we hope that you enjoy the presentation. Once again, Karabo, we welcome you, and you can share your screen now.
All right. Thank you so much for that intro, Deborah. Evening, everyone. Hope you guys are all well. I'm just going to start sharing. And just let me know when you can see if you can see my screen.
We can see your
We
screen,
can see it, but we can see it with the notes as well.
with the notes as well.
Deirdre, please explain to Karabo how you fixed yours.
I forgot. I didn't learn. I just did
I
what you
just
told me to do.
fixed it now.
There you go.
Awesome.
Right.
Karabo, please, before you go ahead, would you like to be interrupted with question, or do you want us to take questions afterwards?
I would like to take questions afterwards, but I will make
Okay.
this session as collaborative as possible as I can.
Awesome. Thank you.
So just to say hi, evening everyone, hope you guys are well. So I'm going to take you through what is an Agile strategy and how it can be used and utilized in organizations. So Agile strategy focuses on adaptability, collaborability, continuous improvement, rapid responses to changes, whether it be technological, customer focused, or product efficiency. It emphasizes on collaboration, planning, iterative, and delivering value in increments rather than a rigid long-term plan such as waterfall. Some of the key principles that are in Agile are flexibility, being flexible enough to adjust to your strategies in real time. One of the things that is now becoming more popularized is real-time decision making. Something comes into the market, something comes to your team. Are you able to adapt to it? Are you able to get that feedback and then make adjustments? Then there's customer-centric approach that's putting your customer at the forefront of what you need to do, such as prioritizing their needs and values, their wants, and also to deliver value for them through exciting them. And then we have iterative development is breaking the work into manageable phases that's going to be over multiple releases. So it's not just about it's being done today, can't change. It's let's break this down, decompose it, and then see what we can do and what we can do for the next sprint cycles. And its focuses on collaboration, encouraging teams to work across departments and cross-functionally. This is to ensure that whoever we collaborate with, we are getting the real-time knowledge, the best knowledge, so that we can do our work more effectively and efficiently. And then now it's efficiency, optimizing processes to reduce waste and increase productivity. What I mean by efficiency is sometimes with the waterfall or the hybrid approaches is that usually processes are outdated, they're more legacy focused, they don't really are fit for purpose for today. And that's what Agile strategy focuses on. And then we have our Agile values, such as commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect. What these mean is that commitment means you have commitment to deliver value, and to show care for your customers. Whatever the product goal is, whatever your goal is to do for the customer, whether it's to increase the new technology, have a chatbot system for your customers, the commitment is I'm going to get this done on time and deliver value. We have courage. You have the courage to make difficult decisions, to stand up and say, no, guys, this is not what's going to work. This is not what I want. This is not what's going to be for the market. The courage to speak up is to say, we are not going to do it this, and make the choice to say, let's go into another direction. And by doing that, we focus one another and we collaborate with one another. Then we have focus, is that everyone concentrates on delivering their portion of work collaboratively and towards delivering value. Distractions are minimized so that we can maintain the momentum. And then there's the openness. Openness is the transparency, is a key principle and value in Agile. We want openness and teams to come to us through collaboration and not through fear, because fear is an impediment in the Agile process and Scrum process. So what we want is openness for the teams to come to us to say, this is what we want to do. It builds trust and it builds a more well-rounded team. And then respect is to respect every member's contribution, is to be valued. Whatever information, if they raise questions, if they have answers, if they need feedback, we respect you enough to give you the feedback that you need to answer any questions that you might have, and to constructively say to them that you are supported and you are valued here. And then these are the typical steps in the Agile process. Now, this can vary from organization to organization, depending if you follow Scrum, Kanban, Kaizen. I typically have the Scrum training. So this is what is a typical view of what I think would be in the Agile steps. We have project planning, we have product roadmap creation, release training. This is more new with the certified Scrum Masters. Then we have sprint planning, the daily stand-up, which is in a box, the sprint review, which is in a box with your stakeholders, and then the sprint retrospective. So I'll be going over each of these steps in the Agile process. But I would just like to do a question for now, or does anyone have anything to say differently? Because this is what I would see. So for each person, what do you think happens in project planning? What do you think happens in the product roadmap creation, in the release training, sprint planning, daily stand-up, the review, and the retrospect? Do I have any takers? Can't see hands.
So there's a question in the chat saying we don't see backlog.
You don't see backlog. So I think that's Sinbon. So I didn't put that one in because that is an artifact. So if you're following Scrum, it would be in the sprint planning where you would see the product backlog with the goal, the sprint backlog with the goal as well, which would be working with the Scrum Master, the product owner, and the developers. If you are following Scrum, and then in Kanban, it would be the Kanban board, which would then be your release trainers, systems engineer, your Epic owner, which would be also your Scrum Master in there as well. So product backlog forms part of the sprint planning. I just said these are the steps in it, but it is incorporated in the sprint planning. I hope that
There's a
answers your
follow-up.
question.
There's a follow-up question from Sinobam. Of these ceremonies, who is the owner?
The owner would be the product owner. So it depends also which Agile framework you want to follow. If it's in Scrum, it would be the product owner. If it's in the Kanban, it would also still be the product owner. It would be the Epic owner. And then in the, what is the other one? It is Kaizen. It also still be the same thing, the product owner, Epic owner. The roles would be ever changing. So it depends on which method your organization follows. I hope that answers your question. Any other takers?
So I have a question, Karabo.
Yes.
What's the difference in these steps versus a waterfall, beside waterfall actually being iterative?
Well, with waterfall, it's more of the hard handovers than anything else. So waterfall typically incorporates At ideation, we have the ideation session, and then we do everything in ideation. And then in the define design, build and test, it's very hard handovers. Whereas with this strategy, it's more every collaboration can happen up front. So even if you have your before even you get to the daily stand up, you can still have your project planning, product roadmap creation, release planning, excuse me, and sprint planning. You can all have that collaboratively at the same time, but it would be best for you to just do it in steps first. But there's nothing stopping you from collaborating up front to maybe get more information. And then as the journey goes on in the project, you may pick up certain things that you can refine at a later stage.
Thank you. There aren't any more questions in the chat. If anyone else wants to ask a question, please raise your hand and then we'll allow you to unmute and ask your question. Okay.
I would add
Xylon
3
says,
amigos.
I would add 3 amigos. Don't worry, we're getting to something similar. Do you want to carry on, Karabo? I don't see any other hands up.
Yeah, I'm going to carry on. So in project planning, this is the layer of the foundation. So it begins at the beginning with, I have the idea. So for an example, this would be for example, this would be a customer leaning project. They would say, we need to improve customer service because the call rates that our customers are calling for the call center is too high, it's too long. We need to have something that can actually help us, which would be in-app chatting. So like some of the banks have. So this would be the project planning to say, okay, this is what's the scope, this is what's the milestone, the resources we need to add. We need to have a feature analyst, business analyst, the product owner, the project manager, scrum master as Agile changes, and there's going to be clear communication with the stakeholders throughout every phase. There's going to be a risk and contingency plan to ensure we are prepared and to ensure that we are flexible to adapt to the changes. And then this is going to be for a well-structured plan that's going to guide it to execution, but supports the tracking, reporting, and decision-making as it evolves. So this is where all the resources come in to plan and see where exactly and how exactly are we going to tackle this project. And then this, as I said, the product roadmap creation, this can be depending on which methodology you follow. So if it's Scrum, it's going to be your product backlog. For Kanban, it's going to be your Kanban board to create your product roadmap. And then for Kaizen, it's also going to be the vision direction board to outline what we need to do in this product. What does it need? How is it going to help the cross-functional teams? The effectiveness that it's going to create in the mode back to understand their needs. So if a customer wants to get an instant response from a customer service agent, that needs to be there. How's the system going to support it? What else do we need to see from an incorporation from a security perspective? Do we send them an OTP to verify them instead of them having to capture their ID number every time they have to get on a call with a particular organization? That's going to be in there. There's going to be regular feedback groups, decomposition updates, and responsiveness to market changes. This is what your product owner and your developers will do. Systems engineer would do depending on which framework you're going to follow. An aligned and transparent roadmap keeps the stakeholders informed because they need to know whether they need to accept this or not, because we are driving value in meeting the definition of done. And then after creating the product, we need to know when can we release it. So in projects in Waterfall, it will say your wish date of implementation. So this is the release plan. So typically your release train engineer will say, okay, you have this product, you created it. When would you like to release it? What is the realistic date? So they bridge the gap between the strategy and the execution. What is realistic and what is not realistic? So if they feel that your wish date is too soon, they will say maybe you need to push it out a little bit more because we don't fully understand the goals and objectives, or if this is realistic enough to deliver. Do the teams have capacity? Do they coordinate? Do we maybe need the assistance of another team? Maybe there's a dependency on them. Is the impact high enough? So this is what's going to help the teams know how realistic it is to plan and how to manage stakeholder expectations and how to deliver value for our customers. Because this release plan has clear transparency, it reduces the risk, and it sets the stage for a successful delivery and continuous improvement for future releases and future sprints, because nobody likes delivering something that the stakeholders and the customers do not want. And then we have the sprint planning. So the sprint planning kicks off an iteration by defining what can be delivered, who will be working on what, how will it be done. Depending on your framework that you follow, the product owner presents the backlog and then selects the items based on capacity and goals. Then this is where your developers will look at the product backlog and the product owner will talk about the product goal and then look at how they best can achieve that. And then each developer will select the tasks that need to be done for that particular product goal and then estimate how long it can take and how long this sprint is going to be happening for. An effective sprint planning sets a clear direction and builds the accountability and shows focus on high priority outcomes. But depending also on how your organization also structures that, it could be that you would have PI planning, big room planning. That's where you have more focus with your agile coaches. They'll coach to say this is what can be done, this is what cannot be done, this is how you would follow it if it's the first time you are piloting an agile sprint planning session or PI planning. And then you will have your sprint review and your sprint retrospective. So this has the 3 product owners that I say, because I say I follow the Scrum framework because I am a professional Scrum product owner that I got in May. So you would have your sprint review where the developers will take us through everything to say, this is what we delivered for the stakeholders. Is this what you want? Is this what is actionable? The Scrum Master facilitates that, and then your product owner as the product value maximizer will get the feedback and see and negotiate with the development team what's going to happen next. And then the developers will present it, and then if it is meeting the definition of done, we'll go to for a release. And then we have what is Agile. So all in all, what is Agile? Agile is a way of life. It is a methodology, but I look at Agile as a lived experience where you constantly are adapting because we need to adapt. Customer needs are changing, landscapes changing. We can't go within the same mentality that we went with back in the day. So it's to ensure that everything gets done in a seamless fashion. What is not agile is stakeholders or people saying, let's not do documentation. Let's just skip compliance. Let's skip the process. That is not what agile is. That is what dynamic behavior is. And what dynamic behavior gets you is technical debt. In Scrum framework, that means poor code, poor timelines, non-delivery, and unhappy stakeholders. And then just for a little humor is estimate impossible. This can happen sometimes when your team overestimates what actually can be done. And then they go back to your product owner to say, actually, we need more time when they could have actually planned properly in PI planning of what they could have delivered. And in a nutshell, that is what Agile is.
Karabo, in terms of Agile, just a question from me, and then I'll go to the chat and check.
Yes.
Is it just the product owner or the Scrum Master that needs to have learned the rules and regulations of Agile methodology, or is it the whole team that needs to have that skills and knowledge set?
It's the whole team, because why I would say that is we are transitioning from a more rigid way of work to a more agile way of work. So depending on which agile framework you follow, you would have to know that in Scrum, there's just only 3 roles. There is product owner, Scrum Master, and developers. So with the Scrum Master, his job is to ensure that Scrum as in the organization gets implemented. So it's not about just, if the product owner is not doing their bit, he needs to coach and tell the product owner, this is what needs to happen in the Scrum framework. You are the value maximizer. You are the person who's delivering value, the product for the stakeholders. So you are in charge of that. And then the developers, he coaches them on self-organization. Listen, you guys are creative. You guys can self-manage. You can take that chair forward. It's just to make sure that are you doing your task? And then for Kaizen, for Kanban, you have the Kanban board. This is a bit more, I'd have to go more into detail because it's touching on agile roles. You have the epic owner, you have which could be the product owner as well. You have the epic owner, then you have, that's the product owner usually. Then you have the project manager, who would now be the scrum master. Then you have your solution architect. Developers would be your systems engineer, your systems analyst, and then release trainers as well. That's how it would go into the next phase. And then same with Kaizen, of the continuous improvement. So I would believe it's a team effort. It's usually the agile coaches who would start first with delivering that value, and then afterwards it's the organization to drive that forward.
Thank you. Zalon has his hand up, so maybe he can go next, and then we can go into the Q&A from the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Karabo, for the presentation. This is a very interesting topic, I think, for analysts, because I saw in the chat a few people ask, where does the analyst fit in, or where do BAs fit in? I think that is one of the main or the hot topics. Where do we actually fit in within the agile ways of work? And then I'm curious to just know how the BAs within the chat work within the companies, because I would assume that we all have different workflows and team setups. For example, in my space, the BAs act as in a tactical role. So we advise product owners, we advise the SMs. We are still the go-between, business requirements and the development team to a certain extent. However, we are part of the development team, right? So that development team consists of your QEs, quality engineers, your developers, and then Scrum Master, product owner, and then your analyst, of course.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'm curious just to know, and we can maybe save that for later. And then the other thing is, Karabo, in your space, right? When would modeling or business analyst artifacts become too much? Because I find it very difficult to find the balance between, lean analysis versus a agile approach. I don't know if you've heard that term before, but yeah, waterfall and agile. So yeah, I would also be interested to get your insights on that.
Okay, so for the roles, as they evolve, so with business analysts, they become feature analysts. So there's one of, she's also part of IBA, name is Emily. She was business analyst, she's now a feature analyst. So a lot of business analysts are now becoming feature analysts. So in the agile space, there's no more that thing of writing the rigid document. It is the stakeholder requirement, business requirement, and then the functional, non-functional. So in how it used to work with me and the teams that I learned from the agile coaches, we had the epic, which is what the stakeholders would want. So if it's an example of fuel voucher rewards, that's the epic. And then the features of that would be self-checkout, discount applying, and then that would come from the user story. So it'd be the epic, feature, and user story. So the BAs are still there as the role. They would just transition into more feature analysts just to do it more quicker. Because bringing back to your next point about documentation, sometimes documentation is too heavy. That's a bit of a debate amongst business analysts and stakeholders. They're like, this is too long. This is too much for me to read. But at the end of the day, we still need documentation because of compliance checks. So BA still transition. So it depends on what the structure and what your organization as a whole does. Because some BAs become data BAs, some business analysts become systems engineers, some become system analysts because of the process experience that they have. So that role would be transitioning to that side. And then the next part about it, I think you mentioned, is the documentation. So you can never escape documentation. But I think what's the next greatest point is that one of my colleagues raises that maybe the tools and the systems that you're using could be like the epic feature user story. You log those for your developers. And then towards the end, when you've released it and delivered value for the product, then you can incorporate that more into your documentation for the end so that you are still keeping agile. Because one of the things that happens often is that you finish this document and then your stakeholder says, we need to revert back to this version. You revert back to that version, it reverts back to this version. So there's a lot of back and forth that could have been saved and a lot of admin that you don't want to do. Because I know as BAs, there could be like a 60-page doc that they say, I'm not reading a 60-page doc, and it's like, but then you're missing the key information. So could maybe documentation come towards the end? Is it required? But that's a discussion per your organization, because some will do it, some won't. It depends which one is. But a lot of the insurance banking do have Agile. They may make some leeway depending on how severe and how confidential the information is. So if compliance says we need this document, it's an unfortunate admin day, but if they don't, then I'm sure it can come towards the end.
Yeah, 100%. So I won't be long, but what I've started doing is creating sort of high-level requirements in Confluence, linking the user stories within Jira to that document. And then if I see a need for some sort of process model or context diagram, or just something to create a visual picture, then I would add that in that document as well, just to as some point of reference, right?
Yes.
And that way you still sort of have this documentation, because 5 years down the line, someone comes in who changed this or who did this, then you know there's something. So yeah, but thanks, Karabo. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Thanks, Alan. I think just to add one more thing quickly to that is that the documents that you or create needs to add value. Don't create it just for the sake of creating it, because then you're just adding admin for yourself. There's a comment from Nisa on the chat. She says, let's add in requirements without evaluating the impacting factors. With a giggle to that.
Ooh, I wonder what your impact assessment solution architect will say.
If you have one.
If yeah.
Not all companies do. Okay, we've got another question here. What are the key differences between implementing Agile at a team level versus at a strategic organizational level?
Well, at a team level, it's only going to affect your team. At a company level, it's going to be company-wide. So if you're implementing, so one of the things we implemented was the project process when it was at MTN, a more simplified one. So what we saw is that there was a lot of hard handovers. You know, PMs would chase BAs, BAs would chase dev. So what we did is it was a more integrated space to say, this is the view of it. This is where the status of the document is. This is how it's going to help us. So for the department level or the team level, it's just going to affect them, and the other teams may not have that visibility. But for company-wide, the benefit is there. There will be some resistance. Some people don't typically like Agile. They think, okay, now I have to do this, I have to do that. The responsibilities shift, the roles shift. Like I mentioned, there's now Epic owners, release trainers, they may not know, so there will be some resistance to that. But the benefits of Agile is that there's more collaboration and more team building up front. You won't always get it right, but the first times you do it, you will see the results and you can always learn from there. That's the beauty of Agile. There's no end of the world. It's just we continue learning.
Sorry, Karabo, it's Christine. I just want to add to that. I'm the one that asked the question. So I also think at the strategic level, so we also have to look at how it involves the culture change, and then get that leadership buy-in. What does your portfolio management look like? And then the alignment in terms of the models, for that iterative delivery. I think maybe, at a strategic level, I think that it adds quite a lot of value, because at team level, we look at that delivery occasions, as you said, the ceremonies, the collaboration, and everything that's involved there. So, yeah, I think all align. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is from Cinnabon. When I was asking the owner, I was heading to who owns what ceremony within a sprint cycle and what are the expectations on each ceremony. An example would be a backlog is often led by BA to ensure that all stories are ready.
So depending on the framework that you're going to use, so backlog refinement, depending on which one. So for product backlog is usually owned by the product owner. There can be input, but at the end of the day, the product owner owns that backlog. And then for your sprint backlog, that is owned by the developers. They are the ones who estimate, who took the features, let me just say features, from the product backlog and then made it into user stories and broke it down. They own that sprint backlog item. If there needs to be any changes, it's collaboration with the product owners and the other collaborative team members in there, but that is solely what they own. So from a project perspective, in a waterfall case, you'd have the people who do the impact assessment, like your developer solution architects. They own a portion such as the impact assessment, capturing their hours, and then the business analyst would own the requirements document, the documentation that needs to be done. If you had a business information privacy, a security questionnaire, and any process flows that need to go in there. And then for the product specification, if you have one or any specification document, it's typically owned by the business owner or product owner. But in terms of each role, it would be specified, but for Scrum, because that's what I'm trained in, the product backlog is owned by the product owner. The sprint backlog is owned by the developers. And that's what it is.
Okay. I think also there's a question here from Nisa in terms of where does the BA fit in? So even though you've got these new roles according to Agile, it doesn't mean that a BA is stuck with one or the other. A BA could be a product owner or a Scrum Master. It's very much intertwined. Yes. So Nisa's question is on where does the BA fit in? I don't know if you have more to add to that.
So where the BA could fit in, it depends on also the culture of the organization that's driving. So me personally, I have BA, ECBA from my BA. I've got PSO from Scrum. I'm doing my professional Scrum Master soon, my professional developer as well to go either or. So business analysts, if they're more driven to the functional and systems, can become a systems analyst, systems engineer in Agile. They can become a feature analyst because they're moving away from the typical documentation and want to do more of the epic feature user stories. They can become a feature analyst, like one of our volunteers here, Emily. She also is now senior feature analyst. Then we have them going into being a scrum master. They can go and be a product owner because now they understand how to deliver value. That's where they can transition. They can also be a release trainer because they know, like, okay, they test the product and they work in hand with the developers. They can also become release trainers. So there's no boxed role that they can do. They can transition into anything. It just depends on the structure of the organization. Where do they want to see each of their team members go in the next phase? Because maybe the next phase for them is that they're tired of being a BA. They want to now become a product owner and own the product. And what they bring is that wealth of knowledge. So they understand requirements, how to manage backlog, how to change things. They become a better product owner. If they become systems, they understand process flow. They've worked with their solution architects and their developers. They now can do more system-driven tools when they do the impact assessment. So they're not boxed into just being a BA. They can transition into any way.
Thanks, Karabo. A question from Ron. We are seeing development teams argue that they don't need business analysis. Please speak to the role of BAs in the whole process of prepping for and carrying out a development process.
So I hear that all the time where they say, product owners say, we don't need BAs. We don't need BAs because what do? They just glorified writers. And I say, okay, you've gotten rid of BA teams before. No product owner wants to write those high-level requirements. No business that wants to write all those kind of business cases. So it usually ends up bad when business analysts are not there. So we are more valuable than people give us credit for. So one of the things that I've always said is that with business analysts, they are the value drivers. They actually understand. They go to the market. They work with their product owners to understand what product they need to deliver. They actually write it. They actually sit there trying to understand what they need to deliver. They don't just guess the work. They actually have to know what they are writing, what they are delivering. I've seen many senior business analysts have a document that was almost close to 100 pages that no product owner could have done and wanted to read. And I had to go and sit there and also facilitate that to say, these are the key value points, but they wouldn't have known without business analysts. So business analysts are more valuable than they give us credit for.
Thanks, Karabo. This is from Cinnabom. I'm guessing this is more of a joke. He says, oh, I've lost track of that. He says, tell me about 2 long stories that are never signed.
These are your user stories that are never signed. It's missing an acceptance criteria.
or it's political Africa and you don't get signatures. Well, not physical signatures. Nisa said Epic features user stories, tasks. I'm assuming that was part of comments too as you were presenting.
Mhm.
And there was a response here. Okay, so to Ron's comment, Zylan replied saying, they are lying, Ron. You should see what our team looks like when analysts are absent. I think the A in team is actually analyst. There is no team without the analyst.
Definitely.
Okay, so here's another question. What are the some common pitfalls organizations face when aligning agile values with strategic goals?
So it could be the mismatch in what actually, so one of the values that we have is the courage, the commitment. So some organizations may not want to be committed. They may say it as a fancy line that, oh, agile is great, but then they're not really committed to it. It's a fancy talking point. Some teams may not have the courage to speak at an exec level. I've also had the pleasure of working with execs, and some of it is not very pretty to say to them, maybe you should abandon this process. They don't want to do that. So courage is sometimes not something that most people have. There's no openness and respect sometimes. So as much as we do work for these organizations and we're proud to work for them, some of them may not respect agile principles that much. So it depends who you work for, but I think that's just the general overview, that it's nice in theory, but in practice, there's going to be a lot of uneasiness and resistance to adopting agile.
Okay. Jeannie's asking, as a business analyst, how do you manage epics that are in progress when unexpected interruptions like bugs, impediments, or code reviews delay the workflow and impact your ability to meet delivery goals?
So that is happens quite often. So if that typically happens, we have to assess, is it a skills? Did they maybe even do the impact assessment wrong? Did they maybe not understand what they needed to deliver? So it's very tricky to pinpoint which one exactly. But what I've seen is that when things get rushed, sometimes the code has bugs in it. Maybe testing wasn't done properly. Maybe the testers who are supposed to be testing overlooked certain aspects of it. So it's very difficult to pinpoint, but those impediments do happen. And what typically it means is that maybe they had a rushed deadline, or maybe they didn't anticipate that the code or the tools infrastructure and the infrastructure in enterprise sometimes is not suited. If it's more legacy, it's very hard to integrate with these new ones. Like I always say, it's like Java to Python. So Python is more user-friendly, Java is more enterprise and rigid. So it's very hard if you're using a more Java approach than a Python approach, where it makes it more difficult to integrate the code. So hardening of old legacy systems does impact. So that would typically mean you need a tools at the beginning. You would need a tools evaluation of, does our current tools and infrastructure support what we need to do? And if it doesn't, then that's a step one of you doing the agile and then you needing to go back. But typically that does happen. It usually is based on, is it they had rush deadlines, or did they not understand what they needed to deliver in a skills perspective? And then that's something of a larger conversation that would need to be had.
Yeah, it could be that they didn't estimate correctly. So
Mhm.
things like this would come out in your retrospective when you're actually discussing what went wrong,
Yes.
and what went. It's also about what went right, but more importantly, what do we do better next time around?
Yes.
Zalon has a comment here. One observation I've made is that organizations often assume Agile will speed up time to market. And while it can in theory, as analysts, we need to remain mindful of the constraints posed by the tech stack.
Definitely.
Nisa's got value drivers for sure. Thank you, Karabo. Okay,
Appreciate it.
then Ron Scott, we are seeing development teams argue. Okay, we've done that one. I think it was a okay, Ron has replied to his previous comment, says, indeed, we are doing a project with no prior analysis, no desire to include analysis, and no actual plan. Yeah, that is setting yourself up for failure. Lati's got, I think the trick in winning this battle is to have a high-level version of the detailed document to ensure stakeholders do not miss key points. They can read the full version for details. And then we've got another comment here. What's your view on hybrid models that combine Agile with traditional project management approaches?
That is very tricky, the hybrid approach, because typically that needs to be done very carefully. What I've seen is that they want to adopt Agile. I think it was, I'll just have to take on the comments name saying, what about Agile? What I've seen is that they think Agile is just going to be a seamless integration, but they don't do a proper assessment of what do you want that Agile to look like. So if you've come from a place where everything was each person had a predefined role. The business analyst wrote the requirements, project manager manages the projects, the dev guys match this, they just do everything in silos. And then now time to bring in Agile, they might say, oh, but this documentation is not mine. You need to be there at the beginning. That's what Agile is about. At the beginning, everyone is involved, everyone is trying to assess. So if you have something already that you could prototype, your solution team will be there to say, this is what's possible, this is what you can prototype. Your business analyst will be there to say, this is what's on the market, this is what can help you. Your product owner says, okay, I see what you guys have done. You've incorporated it, you value maximized it. Can we prototype this? That will be happening in your sprints. And then you'd see if you can deliver value. So it needs to be done very carefully. Organizations don't get it done very carefully. They just slap on these hybrid approaches. So what I would say to that is, what approach are you trying to do? Because we also have lean thinking, Six Sigma in this as well. And then are you trying to incorporate lean thinking, which is more technology system driven, or are you trying to incorporate the waterfall approach or the agile approach? So it would have to be a discussion with your teams to see what is possible and what is not.
Okay, we've got a question we've got a comment in the Q&A from Anonymous. I don't necessarily agree that business analysts are transitioning into feature analysts. It really depends on the organization. While some agile or product-driven environments may adopt the feature analyst title to reflect a more delivery-focused or technically integrated role, many organizations continue to rely on traditional business analyst roles that emphasize stakeholder engagement, process improvement, and strategic alignment. The evolution of the role is often shaped by the company's structure, its maturity in agile practices, and the nature of its projects. In many cases, the titles may differ, but the core competencies and responsibilities remain largely the same.
Yes, definitely. Like I said, it's not a set in stone. It's just dependent on your organization. So they will typically want more traditional BAs. I have also seen it, but there's also the transitioning to feature analysts. I've seen some roles that are like that incorporate if they're going into more of an agile space in the next coming few years. But it's not a predefined, say, this is going to be a feature analyst. It's still business analyst, which is maybe the title or maybe the principles that they are choosing to adopt.
Yeah. I think as well, it's also about the BA themselves and where they actually want to see themselves and where their passion lies.
Yes.
So Xylon says team velocity and sprint planning is key here. If we know the team typically handles 30 story points per sprint, we shouldn't plan for the full 30. It is good practice to leave some buffer, say 10 points, for code reviews, unexpected bugs, and production incidents. Automation can also play a big role here. Streamlining repetitive tasks or testing can help reduce delivery friction and make our velocity more predictable over time.
Yes.
I think it's a work in progress. It's as you're actually working with it that you're going to start finding your pattern and realizing what your counts are. Itu has his hand raised. Itu, you can unmute and ask your question.
Cool. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Lolita, and thank you, Karabo, for that presentation. It was really, informative, especially bringing the agile practice home. I think my point is more of a comment than a question to say. I think a big opportunity exists around where for a lot of agile methodologies, it's always very open to interpretation based on the organization you work for. And that always muddies the water so much for me when I sit sometimes and look at what we do in different organizations. And I think the opportunity that we then have as business analysts is that we may want to now start carving out the ideal situation and the ideal interpretation for us, as BAs. I know some people would say something like, in my organization, I literally put the wireframing together, because that's how elicitation looks. Elicitation is not just walking through requirements and making sure everybody understands, but it's literally putting the wireframes together and actually linking the different screens, using Basmalic and all of those things. So I think sometimes, or the opportunity that we have is for us to carve out what an Agile BA looks like and what best practice looks like from a BA perspective. And then we can then start selling that, to the rest of the industry and to the rest of our stakeholders, because then if we don't, where there's no clear boundaries, abuse happens and takes place. And I think that that opportunity then, will be great for us to know to circumvent that.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
And it's also encompassed for a lot of the teams is that what I think is best, this is just my own opinion, is that there needs to be a review of your PMO office to better adapt to customers. If you feel that, what worked in 2020, it's now 2025, is that has the roles changed? Has the way you deliver changed? If your stakeholders are saying it's taking too long, that needs to be then, how do we change our landscape to better deliver and to be better suited for Agile? And maybe it should just be about piloting Agile for a little bit, just to see how you can do it. Just do it on your own, see what you learned, and then come back and say, I think we actually do need Agile, because believe it or not all organizations need Agile. Some are more, like, for example, some are more if you're in HR as a department, you may not need Agile because, you're facing tough regulations to ensure employee well-being. You could incorporate some principles in there, but it's just as a discussion that you may not need Agile, but if you do, then it's like, how do we change it to be more Agile focused and to have more of an Agile mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks, Karabo. One more. By tying backlog items to business outcomes using OKRs, that's objectives and key results, and involving stakeholders in sprint reviews to validate value delivery, we ensure that Agile initiatives are delivering real value to the business.
Yes,
BAs deliver real value.
they do.
Are there any more questions from anyone?
I'm still waiting for the three amigos.
Oh, we gave you a different version with the impossible. What is it? Probably you want to show that screen again or that slide again.
Let me just find that place.
Here we go. It's showing your notes as well. So I think the three amigos have been replaced by estimate impossible. We've got one more comment here. The BA in Agile strategy is not just a requirements gathering or gather.
Yes.
They are strategic enablers, value translators, and change facilitators.
Yeah.
Your niche clearly positions you as someone who excels in the space, especially in regulated, content-heavy, and transformation-driven environments. I just want to add one more thing to this. In order for Agile to work, it has to be a team working as one. I think that's the only way you're actually going to get it to work. But I have a question for you, Karabo.
Yes.
In order to do your estimates and things, is there a particular tool that you're using in your company or that you've used or that you've liked that helps you to get you're putting up your item on top and everyone is voting on what they think the estimate or level of effort is, and then getting an option to actually discuss. Is there a particular tool that you use to do that?
No, we didn't typically use any tools. What we would do is we had a developer who was very spot on. So they would say, this thing can take me 2 weeks. He'd usually get it done in a week, depending on the capacity he had. But usually we would just go get the queue from our development team because we worked very well with them. So I haven't seen any tools out there. that actually do that. But I think as Agile does evolve, more tools will come out there to give proper estimates, because some rank it based on what the stakeholder believes. So if a stakeholder is high up in the structural and hierarchical ranking, he can say, push this forward, but meanwhile, they don't know much about it. So I haven't seen any estimate tools that are on the market yet, but I'm sure they will definitely
Okay.
be coming.
I think that's very risky because you got a key man dependency. You're depending on Mr. A, that's going to get a close enough quote on your estimation. If Mr. A leaves, how do you then do your estimation? That becomes a risk. Something that we used previously, and we don't do Agile, we do Agile. I've never agreed that we've done Agile because, yeah, I think everyone picks and chooses which part of it they actually like and sticks to that. What we've used is something called planning poker. So it's like how you have your Mentimeters and things like that. You have a link that everyone can actually join in. You put up what the task is, and everyone votes on what they think the estimation is. If all in agreement, hey, and away, you go with it. If there's quite large discrepancies, then you discuss why do you think it'll take longer than somebody else that says it's actually going to take less time. And then you usually, after the discussion, re-vote until you get a consensus or close enough consensus or majority vote to actually get to that point. Cylon has his hand up.
Sorry, just on that, would that be the BAs, QEs, and devs
So it
estimating that piece
depends.
of work?
So it's usually the devs that need to do the estimate, but remember in Agile, it's all one team, right? And sometimes your BA or your QA also has the technical knowledge to actually give some input onto it. Also, your BA knows what that requirement is. So
Yeah.
they may know, also having worked in that space long enough, they could guess at what that solution would be and would be able to give a good enough argument about why they think it should take a longer time because it's not as easy as you think it is, or it's more complicated. Maybe we need to break up this into more features to actually to get through this. So
Yeah.
it could be a collaborative. So that's why I know about it, is because I've attended sessions where we've done estimation, and then I've been able to, especially where there's discrepancies between two developers that are estimating quite vastly different opinions of it, I'm able to actually give them more insight in terms of, okay, you decided it's taking this long. These are your reasons. And I can say, actually, no, that's not what we're actually looking for. I can give a little bit more input and more clarity for them to make more informed decisions in their estimation. So planning poker is nice because it's free and it also allows you to collaborate immediately online. You don't even have to be in person to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. I found that to be true as well. The BAs can give some nice insight into the estimates.
Yes.
But then you just mentioned the dev. So the testing capacity, right? Is that something separate then? Or would that testing capacity be sized with the story, the user story? Am I making sense?
I'm not sure what you mean in terms of testing capacity. Are you talking about the testing that actual estimate?
No. So once the dev is done building this
Yeah.
story, right? This
Yeah.
piece of work, a chunk size, who tests that then? Would it be the BA in your space, or do you guys have quality engineers that go out and test?
Okay, if you're talking about me, I do everything.
Okay. So
No, so it depends, right? It depends on the project, the size of the project. It depends on the organization and how it's split up. A lot of times, if it's a smaller company, the BA tends to do everything from product owner to actual QA or assisting with UAT, or they are supplementing or supporting along the line, but they're usually involved along the way. If it's a larger organization where they have distinct different teams that actually do different things. They're also part of this agile team. They should be involved from up front, but they would do that portion where the QA or testing is required.
yeah, so that's what happens in our space. We have the QEs as well. So when we size a user story, it's everyone.
Yeah.
This is the testing required on it. It's 1 point. The dev is 1 point. So we size it as a 2, for example, to get the story over the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times as well when estimations are happening, and if you're doing it just the developers on their own, they're going to not always include like a senior developer doing unit testing or code review. And so sometimes the estimate is just on the development itself. And when you're actually doing the code review and the unit testing, you're going to pick up the bugs immediately before it even gets to QA. So those need to be included in your estimates.
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, we've reached time, but I think this was very good discussion. There's just one more question from Sholo. As someone new to the business analysis field, I'm trying to understand how Agile shapes the way BAs work. Based on your experience, how has Agile changed the role of expectations of business analysts compared to more traditional methods?
Well, in more traditional methods, business analysts there was very hard handovers. So, and sometimes these hard handovers have no clear line of sight. So what happens is that when a project starts in define and design, what would happen is the BA would then begin their requirements at that stage, and maybe at that stage it's a little bit too late. The market has already changed, and then now they're going in with a not incomplete, but not a very fit for purpose document. And then with Agile, that helps them continuously improve at every point in turn. So it could be they started already, they say, this is the prototype that we want to do. And then as they go into the life cycle and the phases, they realize that tomorrow, this is no more what we need anymore. This is what the customers are facing because of maybe economic pressures, preferences, or values that they are presenting. So BAs in more traditional sense of projects had very hard handovers. They would go in with, I don't want to say half-baked, but they would go into very incomplete documentation. And by the time they have to go back and revert, they've already lost their competitive edge. So the Agile helps supplement that by continuously improving, whereas the more traditional, it was a step-by-step process. At step one, this is what you need to understand. At step two, this is what you need to do. Then project managers would say, oh no, your deliverables is not what's up to standard. And then the blame game begins. The dev says the requirements the BA did were not right. The project manager will say the BA took too long. BA would say, this person did the impact assessment wrong. So it becomes that whole Spider-Man picture. Who is to blame? And that's usually how projects get derailed. So it's more focusing on continuous improvement at every phase. So there's no reason why you shouldn't continuously improve. It's just at each phase, you're going to continuously improve at each time. So that's how Agile has helped many organizations, but it depends also which organizations as well.
Totally agree with you, Karabo. Thank you very much for that. I think it also depends the organization and the projects. You do have some projects that actually require that traditional methodology of doing waterfall because of the restrictions that's in that domain. So it does work. It still works. We're doing Agile where we can, but a lot of times we have to actually do waterfall in order to get our projects and products out there. Karabo, thank you so much. This has been a very informative and interactive and thought-provoking conversation. And thank you for taking the time out to actually share your views and your tools with us. It's really, really been very well received. I think everyone's enjoyed it, and the comments alone, you can see how it's actually provoked everyone and got the thoughts going and getting everybody to actually think now of how do they actually get into this Agile space and use it on their side. So lots of comments coming in saying thank you till we meet again. So thank you very much, Karabo. Also, Karabo, do you not want to just share with us your LinkedIn details for anyone that wants to continue the conversation and pick your brains a little bit more on Agile?
I just need to find my LinkedIn link. Let me just try and get it from my phone as well, just to try to send it off to you guys.
Because I think that would help as well. So lots more comments coming. Thanks, Karabo. Great session. Thank you. Thank you very much, KB. Thank you. Till we meet again. Thank you, Karabo. So Karabo, and I think a lot of these people are not actually going to believe us, but for your first time, this was very well done. And so we hope that we're actually going to be able to have you present more in the future. Maybe next step is a masterclass or consider the BA Summit.
Definitely. Not an agile coach, guys, but I am definitely can speak to more of the agile principles if you need. Maybe for the next time I should go into the roles and responsibilities of each person as they evolve.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I just want to see where you, okay, you've been. So if anyone needs Karabo's connection details, it is in the chat. The recordings will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so you can actually follow on there as well. And thank you all for making time to actually join us tonight, and we hope to see you at the next one. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night further.
Thank you.